just about 2 more seconds. We just got to make sure that that mic's working real good. I closed a screen too, so hold on. I got to get it back.
I tend to do that with my fat fingers on this magic mouse thing.
Also, the delete button's right next to the power button, I'd like to point out. That's been a real problem. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this August 13th Township Board Meeting to order. It is 5:32. Remote location identification for remote attendance when permitted by state statute. We do not have any. At this time, please feel free to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the...
I'm going to open up public comment on non-regular session items. So for any item that is not on the agenda, we will take public comment for that now. Oh, shoot. Actually, if you could just pause for one moment. I said something and I did not follow through on it. The irony is there. Give me just one moment. Our chair, Sherry Bell, is unable to be here today. She had to be absent, and I would take nominations for chair for this meeting.
I would like to nominate Clerk Farmer.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. I would love for you to share public comment with us. You can share your name and address if you want. You are not required to do so. If you could, yep, bring it right down and you're good. If you turn your head, it's difficult to hear, but if you speak directly into it, we'll hear you.
Okay. My name is Karen Tinklenberg, and I live at 5585 Vintage Lane, apartment 102 in Oshtemo. It's a Kalamazoo address, but it's in Oshtemo. And I'm here today to talk about an unsafe crosswalk. It's located on Maple Hill Drive, off of Vintage Lane, and it's right in front of the movie theater, Maple Hill Mall, GQT Theater, I believe it's called. Where I live is called Evergreen North. It is an apartment complex for senior and disabled people. You have to be 62 or have a disability. And we have residents who use electric wheelchairs. I use a walker. We have some blind residents and at least one deaf resident. And unfortunately, since our smoking is not allowed anymore in the whole complex and the whole grounds, if they want to smoke, they have to go across the street. So there are a lot of people, a lot of vulnerable elderly people using that crosswalk. And I feel that it's not safe because right now there is just one sign with a picture of a crosswalk and a stick figure, and that's it. It doesn't say anything at all. The other day, well, I guess it was a couple weeks ago now, I was in the middle of the crosswalk with my walker. I saw a car way down by Croydon coming toward me. I figured, well, he'll wait when he gets here. I'll make it. He didn't wait. He kept going right through, right in front of me. And this has happened before. I don't use it that much because I have a car, but I'm here for my neighbors who do not have cars, and there are a lot of them because it's also a low-income residence. And also, of course, the smokers because they're addicted to cigarettes and they have to go out a lot. So, let's see. There was another resident named Bob. I don't know his whole name because he doesn't live there anymore, but he was actually hit in that crosswalk and was in the hospital for quite a while. So it's not just, what could happen, it's what has happened in the past. And also the speed limit was recently, well, maybe a year ago, was increased to 40 miles per hour. So what I'm asking for today is a change in signage or a flashing red light or a sign that says stop for pedestrians like they do in other places, like even the grocery stores have. Libby Heine Cogswell suggested bump outs, make the street smaller, a little narrower for us to cross, but then traffic would have to also go into one or two lanes. And just better law enforcement. And I think that's all I need to say right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else present who would like to provide public comment for non-agenda items? Okay, we're going to move into the next item, which is public official updates, and I see that we have County Commissioner Dale DeLue here. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Just a few quick things. A week ago today, we had an election, and I want to thank the voters of Oshtemo and Kalamazoo County for renewing the senior millage, and congratulate all the trustees who made it through the primary. I say sometimes public service is not easy or fun, and
Definitely not in a campaign year.
and sometimes what you get paid, it's almost like volunteer work. So I just want to tell you, I appreciate all you do, and for stepping up again and wanting to do it again. September 7th, 10 o'clock in the morning, we have a save the date. We're getting some of these cards out. It's the grand opening of the new Charles Pratt Justice Center. Although it's been operating now for a few months, they finally want to have a grand opening, and they're going to have some family there from Judge Pratt. And you can see where your $95 million went down there. They're hoping to do some public tours so people can get to places that you wouldn't normally be able to access on a regular business day. Sorry, Tom, you can hear what I said last night again. As part of a county commissioner, I serve on the Veterans Service Board, and there are two things I want to point out. I don't know who is a veteran or if you have contact with veterans, but every year they have a Veteran of the Year, which is honored on Veterans Day. And they're looking for nominations for anybody that is a vet or knows a vet that they feel they have contributed something extra to veterans in the community or just the community at large. And you can, do all this online like we do everything else these days through the local Veterans Service Office. And also for veterans, on August 25th, which is a Sunday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. is Veterans Family Fun Day. And what they've done is they've rented out airway lanes for all those hours, and there won't be anybody there but veterans and their families. Again, if you know anybody, it's totally free. They do have to go online and sign up, again, through the Veterans Office. And as far as the county board goes, we just last week hired a new corporate counsel, Lewis Smith, who was actually the number 2 guy in the office at the time. And we began our first brainstorming session on the budget, which you can never start too early because it seems it just goes on all year, I think. So, and that's all I have tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I see we have Road Commissioner Thomas Brennan, which is appropriate. I hope you were able to hear the comments that were provided in the first public comment.
Yes, actually, I had a question on that. She said something about the speed limit being raised there?
It was raised. That
By
was
whom?
the state police. It
Oh.
was requested to have a speed study, and they ended up raising the speed limit.
Was that
instead of-
something you did internally? Because I don't remember traffic control either on that one.
No, I mean, the road commission was involved, because didn't we, I think we sent the request through the road commission, and then it went through the regular
We normally
process.
have to sign off on any traffic controllers, and I
Yeah,
just.
it's been a few years,
Maybe it's been a few
2 or
years.
3,
Okay.
I think.
Okay, I was thinking less.
2 at least.
Okay.
Say it again. Oh, it was pre-pandemic, actually.
Okay, very good. Apologize, I thought she mentioned last year or something, and I was having trouble remembering. Okay.
But so, I'm glad you were
I
able
totally
to.
understand that. Yes,
So I'm glad you were able to hear it. After public comment, I was going to mention that while we don't have jurisdiction over the
Right.
items you presented, other than the additional law enforcement,
Right.
which we'd be happy to move along, the road commission does, and certainly MDOT has some authority as they reconfigure that intersection. And so
Yeah.
the appropriate people have heard your comments.
right. Yeah, and that, I'm curious, I'm unaware of the timing for the MDOT projects there.
Oh,
Do you
yeah,
know when they're gonna start?
we can send you the information about that.
Okay, thank
We
you.
had a presentation and we can share that with you too, from MDOT, so.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I didn't have any specific things today. I believe all the projects and your projects are completed for the year. The chip seal, we're 85% complete. We just got a little bit in Comstock and Kalamazoo Township to finish. Obviously, Drake and Squires, the roundabout is open and functioning well there. We worked through that as best we could and came in a little bit ahead of schedule, which is unusual, but we always appreciate it, as you do. Just if there's any questions, I really don't have anything special that I can help you with today, I don't think.
I don't think we have anything wrong.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and you certainly know how to get a hold of me.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public official updates? I don't see any. Okay. Thank you so much. We are going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there anyone, so on the consent agenda today, we have the meeting minutes from July 23rd, 2024. We do not have receipts and disbursements. I'm removing that from the consent agenda. We have the KL Ave sanitary sewer lateral installation. We have budget amendments. We have step 2 preliminary plan approval for West Ridge site condominium and revisions to the building department fee schedule. Is there anyone present wishing to remove anything from the consent agenda?
I would like to remove item C, please.
All right, we are going to remove KL Ave sanitary sewer lateral installation, and I will add that to the agenda after number 9. Anyone else?
Move we approve the consent agenda without item C, the sanitary sewer item, or the, what was it?
Receipts and disbursements.
B, receipts and disbursements, sorry.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by trustee Sikora and a second by trustee Chapman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda passes 5-0 with 2 absent. Moving right along. Sorry, I'm doing the meeting minutes while I'm doing this chairing, so give me a second. Moving right on to the next item, second reading of zoning ordinance amendments number 672, and I welcome Planning Director Jody Seforia to the podium to present this item. And again, this is the second reading.
Yep.
The reason we did not include this on the consent agenda was because we had a little contention the first time around. And so typically for this, we would leave it on the regular agenda so that we can have further discussion. Take it away.
Well, I didn't really have anything to add to thank you very much, Attorney Porter, for covering for me at first reading. We didn't make any changes from first reading to second reading to the language.
Thank you. So at this time, it would be appropriate for trustees to have questions for the planning director.
I have a couple questions. So as I read the I-1 and IR district, and I went and visited several of those areas, one thing that I noticed that was in common is that the businesses that are in these zones have low impact on the community. The activities that occur there are fairly quiet. There's not a lot of traffic associated with it. There's not a lot of pollution associated with it. Is this change effectively changing the nature of the entire zoning when you consider the potential for truck traffic, when you consider the potential for truck noise, when you consider the potential for increased pollution and impact on the individuals who may live in areas around that? Was that considered? And 2, does it change the entire nature of the district?
Well, that was not the intent, allowing this land use, which is essentially a new land use in the last 5 years, thank you to COVID and online ordering. We tried to write in all the protections we could about limiting hours, increasing setbacks that aren't imposed on any other use in those zoning districts. And I'm acquiring the berm with a height of 5 to 8 feet and plantings on top of it. We tried to allow this land use, but buffer it, or buffer the adjacent residential uses.
In the sound buffering, 70 decibels at 300 feet if you didn't have the berm. A berm is very effective with sight. So if you can see the facility, it doesn't cover it. Sound will go around it. So it's very much a shadowing effect. So the berm will mitigate some of the noise, but was any consideration given to the potential for pollution? And my concern there is the fine particulates that are released by diesel. Now, I know that there is mention of a couple things in there. The no idling was listed in there, but at 300 feet from other properties, you still have significant potential for fine particulate pollution. Was any consideration given to the fine particulate
No,
beyond that?
no. And my research of how communities across the country are addressing that, I didn't see anybody delving into that. These are best practices that, those conditions that I tweaked to fit Oshtemo.
Was any consideration ever given to, instead of it being the entire I-1 and IR districts, creating a separate district for this potential use?
No, that's usually not how we handle new land uses. We find a zoning district and write the language to address them. If anything, we're trying to get away from creating new zoning districts and to consolidate the, I think, 16 that we have.
Okay. So again, my concerns with these are, light industry causes relatively little pollution compared to heavy. It's why light industry is typically allowed closer to residential neighborhoods. And when I look at the map and when I went out, there's, several areas that would directly impact people, their property values, and their potential health. As we know, fine particulate irritates eyes, nose, throat, and lungs, and can lead to cardiovascular and respiratory issues, in particular with children and adults. So I really have significant concerns about this, and the fact that it is very close to some neighborhoods that we have, and in particular, one that is quite low income and arguably underserved. So I still have those concerns, and I don't know that this is the right use in that area. And the changes would be across the entire area. So it wouldn't just be, as we discussed before, along 9th Street. Everywhere that is on our zoning map gray would be impacted. And again, like I said, several of those areas are adjacent to low-income people who already have significant challenges. And adding additional health concerns, I just don't think is in the best interest of our community. I'd like to think that my constituency is people over corporations and developers. And I think that the people in those neighborhoods are going to be significantly and adversely affected by this change.
Is that a question?
Do you feel that the individuals in those areas could be affected
I can't
negatively by
know.
this change?
It's not the intent. That's not what planners do. Our whole career is to write language that protects the community, puts the community first. So that was certainly not my intent. And the Planning Commission didn't seem to send it forward with that type of intent behind it. They are comfortable with the 12 conditions that are proposed.
Jody, do you have the, again, this is not a permitted use in, sorry, this is not a permitted use in every zone. I just want to point out this is a special use. And some people that may not be familiar with zoning may not understand that in addition to the specific criteria for approval of the special use, there are general provisions for special use. Can you recite those to the board? I don't have my zoning ordinance with me. I just think that would be helpful to understand that they would first have to meet the general special use criteria.
Well, and while she looks that up, that was going to be my next question, was how many of these concerns would be addressed in site plan approval?
That's why I just suggested
Yeah.
it would be good to look at that language. I think it would be,
Well, without a mandate in the ordinance as like a condition number 13 of an environmental impact study, I don't know that we would get at that through the special use process. I mean, I would like to see language like that in the ordinance itself, so that a developer knows at the time of application that this additional study is going to be required. If that's the preference of the board. Instead of trying to get at it, we could through the special use process, but it would be more upfront to have it just right in the ordinance.
And that's not currently in there as I read it, is that correct?
Correct.
I think we can continue to talk about that during deliberation. Are there any other questions for the planning director with regard to the ordinance?
I have, do you want, acting chair, Farmer, would you like me to just quickly go over the special use?
Oh, yes, if you, I didn't want to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
so if you didn't find it right away, I wasn't
Yeah, I
going
got
to,
it.
but if you have it, yes.
That the use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the existing or planned character and use of adjacent properties. And this is quoting the ordinance, meaning the proposed use can coexist with neighboring uses in a stable fashion over time such that no neighboring use is unduly negatively impacted. Next, the planning commission would consider potentially adverse effects arising from the proposed use on adjacent properties would be minimized through the provision of adequate parking, placement of buildings, structures, and entrances, as well as the location of screening, fencing, landscaping, buffers, or setbacks. And then last, that the proposed use would not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future adjacent uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, smoke, odors, glare, or visual clutter. And those criteria are applied to every
To
special
every
use
special use.
regardless of zoning district,
Right.
if it's listed as a special use.
that's why I
In
wanted
the
to point
ordinance.
it out, because if you had one of these that was going to be immediately next to a large residential community, if you went through those criteria, would you recommend approval? And the chances are you wouldn't. I think that's fair to understand the entire ordinance when you're weighing adoption, that there are criteria that would address these issues.
Well, so here's my question, and it's going to start with a statement. If we make a change to this ordinance and add language, we have to take it back to square one with a first reading again.
Yes,
True or false? True.
true.
If we moved forward with this understanding that there are some protections in place, but then requested an amendment to address some of these environmental concerns, this ordinance could be in effect, and then when we want to amend it, we would bring it again to first reading and make an amendment.
You could do that if you chose.
Is it a logical thing to do? Is that appropriate? I mean, because I do know that there are some projects that are waiting for this amendment to be done, that are not just about the industrial uses, right?
There's other uses in 672 unrelated to distribution fulfillment centers that there are people eager to see adopted.
Right. Like the accessory buildings that we talked about at pretty great extent the last meeting. And I guess this is more about deliberation, so I'll save that. So before we could take public comment and go into deliberation, is there any other question about this?
I have one additional question, and it does relate to the special use. So the conversation was brought up in part about distribution centers. And part of the change, as I understand it, is for distribution centers. But the concerns I just mentioned And the wording that was just said would negate the ability to, or potentially negate the ability to develop a distribution center
In some areas, yes.
On certain parcels.
Yeah.
in the certain parcels. Okay. I just wanted to make sure my understanding of that was correct, because that addresses some concern, and I thank you for making that clarification.
No, and I appreciate your concerns. Initially, I thought this was an easy thing to put in front of the planning commission, and then I had to keep postponing it the more I did the research on how other communities that are much tighter, where industrial abuts older neighborhoods, even in like the city of Kalamazoo or Kalamazoo Township, like it is something you got to step back and make sure you are protecting the homeowners and the residents in those areas.
And as frustrated as I am with our healthcare system, when a medical doctor provides insight on something, I do tend to want to listen. I did smoke cigarettes for 20 years though, so I don't know. To be clear, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I just want to. Anyway, all right, right now I am going to, I'm not sure how appropriate it would be, but we might need her when we go into deliberation.
You can always ask questions during deliberation.
Okay.
If you choose. It's
Then
just
it-
not open to public comment at
Right.
that time.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'm going to open up public comment for this item, for this ordinance amendment for number 672. Anyone who wishes to provide public comment will have 4 minutes to do so.
I would just like, thank you. My name is Patricia Williams, to put forth the idea for maybe a further conversation that trees be thought of, you know? Trees, in particular, certainly certain ones, I don't know which ones, are known to clear, you know, CO2 and things that are harmful to the environment. I think that might, you know, address your concerns about the environment. It's kind of a simple thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone here wishing to provide public comment for the amendments to number 672? Please join us at the podium. This is only public comment for 672. Anyone else? All right, we're going to close out public comment for this item, and the board will go into deliberation. I really don't want to hold up this amendment because of those other changes, but at the same time, I think it's important to recognize what you're talking about here. I think it is very important, and so I would like to be able to figure out a way to make both things happen. Does anyone else have any comments they would like to add to this?
I do, just a couple more. I think the public comment that mentioned trees, but my concern, the gases that I'm concerned about are in particular nitric oxide, which is NOx, because it can be NO2, NO3. But nitric oxide and fine particulate matter can't be absorbed by trees, but are uniquely absorbed by the human body. And so there's no way that on a normal, simple basis to negate that without addressing the source of the pollution. And it's unique to diesel fuel versus gasoline. When you see a diesel speed off, you see that cloud. That cloud is less impactful to the general environment as far as greenhouse gases, but very impactful to humans. In particular, as I said, the old and the very young. And it's a known cause of asthma in children, among other things. So it sounds good, and industry would like to say that that's a potential solution, but it doesn't negate the true concern. My concern here isn't CO2, it's the NO2 and the NOx, the other constituents of that, and that fine particulate matter. There's no other way to really have a reduction of that. We see nationwide anybody that's living near highways or other concentrations of this have higher incidences of sudden death and respiratory issues. So it's a concern. And I look at some of these neighborhoods, and Some of them are right next to high impact or high population areas. And in particular, areas of economically disadvantaged individuals, such as trailer parks. And it's not just along 9th Street that this change would be impacted. This is along KL Avenue, this is along 9th Street, this is along Stadium. Anywhere, if you look at your zoning map, that's gray, which is, I think we have to really look at the number of people impacted. The zone around Stadium has almost no impact on people. People are far enough away from that area that I would raise no questions. The accessory building, by the way, I raise no questions against, I fully support. And I fully support the use of I fully support having these types of centers in our community. It's just I don't support changing the entire zoning, the definitions that are used in I-1, IR, and I don't approve the location that could be impacted.
If I could just get clarification, so you mean even with an amendment to the ordinance, you would not support the location?
I can't because the number of people who would be impacted. And if we say an environmental study, I would need more detail. But again, if there was a way to create a separate zone bordered by 6th, and I can't read because my eyes are old. If you look at the zoning, the one along Stadium, absolutely, I'd have no questions about making the change for that. It's when we get to the other areas that I think have significant impact.
Could we pull this map up on our projection so that we can all see what we're talking about? Would one of you mind doing that? Either John or,
Well, keep it,
just so we can see what he's talking about.
right,
and
no,
we can-
while she's doing that, I'll just mention, we keep, the reference keeps being made to a particular location. No location is proposed at this point. It's when that location was chosen, if it was, let's say, immediately adjacent to a mobile home park, that's when your special exception use criteria would be applied. Rather than creating a separate zoning, that's why you have special uses. You have them to filter, let the planning commission filter out what's appropriate, what's not. That's the whole concept behind special uses.
But does that mean you're saying that going through that process would prevent it from happening next to the trailer park?
It should.
I would-
You read those general criteria for a special use, I can't imagine that somebody would approve one that was immediately adjacent to a.
Because that's one of the criteria.
But it
Correct.
wasn't questioned in presenting it now, so why would it be questioned later?
Because that's the criteria that you have to draw. Every plan that comes in, site plan, or a request for approval of a particular use goes through site plan. And one of the things you do for a special use is you draw it through all of the general criteria. And the planning department is required, in all their reports, go through each and every step of the general criteria, and then they would go through each and every step of the specific criteria before they could recommend approval of a special use. That's why, rather than rezoning particular parcels, you have, this concept of special uses has been developed under state law to allow the planning commission then to evaluate and apply these general special use criteria and then the specific special use criteria and say to an applicant, well, here on Stadium, you could have that. Perhaps next to the mobile home park, you can't have that. Why? Because you don't meet the special use criteria. And I think that's what sometimes gets lost when you just talk pure text. And then you say, well, this could be allowed anywhere, in theory, but it can't unless it meets the special use criteria.
Do all special uses that go through the planning commission come in front of the board?
Yes.
So we would have to review all
no.
of.
No,
Right
not
now,
the
before
township
planning
board.
Right,
commission.
so,
That's why you have a
so
planning
if
commission.
something were to accidentally slip through, or to my point, something that one of us didn't agree with, we wouldn't know.
Well,
I think
you
this
get-
is a good time for education then, because.
That's what I'm trying to share.
Well, I think we need, here, I have a suggestion. So it's kind of like the board establishes policy and then there are procedures that go with it. Right now, we're talking about the ordinance policy, but we already have this separate thing in place that supports that. And you did read them off to us. Would you mind sharing those so that we can have a visual to really understand that process? Oh, I was hoping you were looking at it digitally. I'm sorry.
No, I'm
No.
looking at the same thing you're looking at.
Yeah. I think we have to have that conversation, though, to better understand that process, because I think most board members here, unless they sat on the planning commission, they're not familiar with that process. And I think we need to talk it through before we vote on this.
Yeah, this is not a good day for Zach to not be here.
It's really not a good day. I wish, when you and I were having this conversation, which is why I didn't see my email, we were literally in our meeting while he was sending us the email that he wasn't going to be here.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
wanted to
thank you.
mute the screen first so I don't make people nauseous bouncing around.
Sorry for doing that
You're
to you
welcome,
earlier.
whoever said that. Oh, I don't have any internet. IT, I'm gonna need some help here. The World Wide Web.
The internet's, she's trying to get to a series of tubes developed by former vice president. Like with my voice, or can I, I'm not doing, welcome. You've got me. Don't worry, it's the early 2000s, it's all spam.
If Colton were here, he would have had this pulled up 3 minutes ago. You stuck with me.
We appreciate your flexibility.
I appreciate your patience. I don't know how good this is going to show, but
I think it'll just be a good, me not having seen it yet, I think it's gonna be good. Okay.
can I enlarge this? But it's right here, review criteria, right in the middle of the screen. And I read C impacts to you, 1, 2, and 3.
So with this process, you can see that top line says that the planning commission shall, which means they will, it's not a choice, only approve an application for a special use that meets the following standards. And when they receive their packet for a special site plan review, staff has laid out this series of criteria and explains how they either meet or do not meet that criteria. And that is the information that the planning commission uses to make a decision. And it's through that process that the applicant can come back and make changes so that they do satisfy the requirements, or ultimately they can be denied because it says, this is our rule. They shall only approve an application for a special use that meets the following standards. That means all of the following standards. It's not best of 5, it's not, they have to go through every one. And so that's also why planning commission meetings are really, really long sometimes. For good reason, because they're talking about these important things that are put in place to safeguard the township. Would you like to talk through each one of these standards? Anyone?
I'll just add that I only read impacts, but the first thing you do with a special use is, what does the master plan say? And would this use be consistent with the vision for the area and as well as the intent of the zoning district that is underlying? And then, of course, the site plan review criteria, and that will be a long report, several pages in the report from staff going over all the site plan review criteria to see if those are met. Then all those impacts I already read, and then maybe D gets a little more at what we're concerned about with the environment. Although, as I look at that closer, maybe it's talking more about just natural features on the site versus air pollution like we're concerned about. And then our water and sewer and the roads, is there adequate infrastructure to serve the use and that they would not be negatively impacted? And then F is what these 11 conditions are, the specific use requirements, are those met? So every use, not every, a lot of the special uses also have additional criteria. So in addition to A through E, F says, is there anything else that you impose on this special use? And there's several of them in the ordinance, and that we would look at those as well. So almost like a third review section.
Hey, just for, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just.
Go ahead, and then Michael can answer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things you have to keep in mind is it's not just the planning commission, which is the citizen commission, so they're everybody's neighbors. But again, as you pointed out, you have professional staff preparing the report, analyzing these very criteria. I mean, if the board wanted to move this ahead tonight, but wanted to add additional specific criteria for these types of uses, they could do that under Article 49.
I'm sorry, I am so confused. I don't see how number C3 doesn't address that. The proposed use would not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future adjacent uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, smoke, odors, glare, or visual clutter. I don't understand how it's not covered in that.
That's actually what I wanted to address. So under that one, be very careful how you read that, because smoke, odors, NO2 has no odor. Nitrous oxide has absolutely no odor. It's invisible. So how would this catch that? It wouldn't, because it is an odorless gas. It is invisible gas. Now, the solid particulates could be considered smoke, but it's still not captured by this. So yes, if there was excessive noise, which I argue this could potentially create, smoke, no, there's no visual smoke. Odors, an odorless gas is not going to be detected by this glare or visual clutter. This does not address an odorless gas that is known to have negative impacts.
So maybe
And
what
if
we're
we
talking
look
about
at-
is a simple adjustment to that line then, adding, right?
So
Something
we can't do
about-
that here
no?
because this is not part of the ordinance amendment before us. This is that separate process that the planning commission goes through. So there are two options, though. We could amend the ordinance that's before us, and we wouldn't be able to bring this back for 2 more weeks. Is that right? We'd have to, because it would come back
It would
as first
take-
reading?
It would take a lot longer than that, because
Okay.
I need at least 2 weeks just to get it to the newspapers, to get it to the planning commission, so probably.
Oh, right, because it would have to go back through, and I skipped that part. It would have to go back to the planning
and
commission.
Start all over again.
Which I'm in support of. I would rather put pause on this language, add environmental impact study, get some knowledge from outside my area of expertise, from people in the industry, of how it should be worded, to make sure we're going to get an environmental impact study that is telling us what we want to know about these odorless gases and their impact on neighbors and what can be due to abate or not. So I would rather have that language in place than
And you
circle
would
back and add it.
And you would support that in the actual ordinance, not necessarily in the review criteria?
Right, I mean, I would rather have it be specific to this land use.
Is there any way we can address some of the other items that were in this amendment that aren't affected by this section?
You could approve section, would be
The structures.
section 6 and 7. Everything else is addressed to the, I'm sorry, 4, 6, and 7. Is that right, Jody? Will you check? Make sure that we're clearing the sections we wanted to.
And while she's double checking that, the rest of that would be, and sending the rest, and
It would-
requesting that the planning commission
You're
review the rest.
approving, yeah, Articles 4, 6, and 7 for second reading, and returning the rest of the ordinance back to the planning commission for further review.
Yeah, 4, 6, and 7.
Now, may I ask another question?
Please do.
Would it be possible, and I'm just thinking out loud, trying to not hold things up, would it be possible to add something that this could not be next to R3, R4, R5 zones? Because I think, and I don't know if we can do that, but that would alleviate some of the concerns I have. Can we put additional restrictions here now?
No,
Okay.
no,
Thank
that
you.
would have to go back to the planning commission. It's a change that would require sending it back. Now.
But we're providing our
But
feedback right now.
you're giving them feedback. The planning commission can take into account, do we need an environmental impact study? We heard from the board that if it were not adjacent to the zones you just mentioned, they could take that into consideration. Could they craft all of that and bring it back? Sure.
So did they get that information through our planning director?
Yes.
Okay.
And our liaison, but we'll have to just hope he watches this meeting.
I mean, this makes sense to me because for me, I wouldn't have thought of diesel fumes. I mean, the homes we're talking about is 300 foot, and I look at that and go, that's a pretty, what, 3 of these rooms? And so that didn't even cross my mind until Trustee Michael brought it up. And so who determines detrimental, hazardous, disturbing, and to what level? Right? I'm a resident, I'm a treasurer, but I'm not qualified or certified to determine what's hazardous and not hazardous without just using common sense. And I missed that. So I think what we're doing with specifics is gonna be way more clear and easier to understand on a much bigger level.
And everybody loves a good environmental impact report. It's true. I've been watching a lot of Yellowstone lately. No, it's a good suggestion, and we appreciate your willingness to take that back to the planning commission. It's not great when we identify things during second reading, but it's always good to get it right, so. And put people first, because this board does tend to put people over property, which is appropriate. All right, so what we have before us, go ahead.
No, so I would just like to say that I'm looking at this from a different angle. Having been chaired the planning commission before, chaired the ZBA, have a fair amount of experience in planning and zoning. I understand what they were doing. I read the minutes. I have a great confidence in our planning commission that they had, through their numerous meetings, that they've addressed or thought about a lot of these issues, or that they will be thinking about these issues when something comes forward to them. Similarly with our planning department and our planning director, I don't want to see us end up with some, 800-page, criteria, because no one's ever going to come and do anything here. I think we need to have some flexibility and some understanding, and maybe some of that is involved with training people to understand what the ordinance is, how they work, what an environmental impact would be, and who's going to review it, and all this sort of stuff. But I have to say I would be supportive of what was presented here, with an understanding that I trust my fellow citizens, that, especially ones that this board has appointed to serve in those positions, that they're taking a training class, they're understanding that, and that people will be bringing other ideas to them and other angles and making sure everything is covered, whether it's from us or from the planning department. I hate to get involved with second guessing whether someone else is politely, I'll just, well, I won't say it. Anyway, would have the correct abilities to make a decision when it's their job to make that decision, and they've been trained to do it. So anyway, that's why I've tried not to say very much, because I've appreciated what has gone through all these steps to get this here. And if it helps to send something back for a further review and the planning director agrees with taking that on, I'm not sure how much farther we're going to get specifically on some of these issues, but I would support whatever the board's like to see happen here. How's that?
Thank you. And I think maybe my perspective on this is also 8 years on Planning Commission, a few years on ZBA. I don't necessarily have the expectation that the planning commissioners or the ZBA members, zoning board of appeal members, are reading through a close reading of the ordinance. I think that that is also why it's so important that we have professional staff, which we do. We have staff right now with decades of combined experience. Actually, just in you, Jody, alone.
Thank you.
Right.
Justin.
I mean, like, through your schooling, through your, through your actual.
Started with
working.
preschool.
Right. I mean, it was crazy. You became the earliest 9-year-old to be a planning director.
a
But,
savant.
no, I mean, like, we have lots of experience here, and we rely heavily on those staff reports that really lay out how the ordinance affects the decision. And then, sort of, I don't want to say the simpler version, but that review criteria. And when they can put those together appropriately, I think we're closer to the best decision for our community. But I agree with you, because they also do take on a lot of responsibility as Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals members. We also know it can take a while to get used to it and get into the hang of things, and it's so difficult for them to touch on every aspect that we want them to touch on. Because any job has a learning curve to it, and I mean, I know that you don't become even a really good planning commissioner for about 2 years, just trying to learn the new vocabulary. And so as helpful as we can be in making those decisions, I want to be supportive of that.
You unfortunately touched upon something else in your statement there by saying that
What was it, Jody's age?
you don't expect that not everybody on a planning commission reads everything and goes
No,
through
no, a
fine-
close reading of the
close reading
ordinance.
of the ordinance,
Yeah.
and such as like what we're doing. Those are training issues, those are perspective issues, those are experience issues that I think are something slightly different, because you can put whatever you want in here, but as we've seen, they're still open for interpretation no matter what's here. So, I think there's different things. I think we have to expect that the people that are appointed, we know that they're going to give their best and do their best and everything, and make sure we provide them the tools with training and how to interpret things and that sort of stuff. So,
I agree, the training is very important. Is there any other comment on this item before I entertain a motion? All right, then I would entertain a motion, just as a reminder, this is to move sections 4, 6, and 7 for second reading and return the rest back to the Planning Commission for further review.
could you tell me where you're getting 4, 6, and 7?
I got that just from Jody and,
If you look at the actual,
It's underneath the,
oh, where they got
Thank,
them.
It's on
okay,
here.
I was looking at the
I was
memo,
like, I
the
just
memo
listened
that
to-
was
the
prepared.
actual ordinance itself
Yeah,
is
gotcha.
what I was referring to.
Who's the next page?
I will make the motion to approve for second reading the text amendments to the Township Zoning Ordinance 4, 6, and 7, and leave the remaining to go back to the Planning Commission for further.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? I'll make that second. So a motion by trustee Cole, second by clerk Farmer to approve second reading of the zoning ordinance amendments number 672 for sections 4, 6, and 7, and return the rest of the amendments back to the Planning Commission for further review. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with 2 absent. Thank you all for your flexibility and really dedication to protect our residents in the community. Moving on to the next item, and thank you very much, Planning Director. Resolution approving the sale of township property. Both Public Works Director Anna Horner and Attorney Porter are here available for questions, and if you guys want to have anything you'd like to present.
I know that your engineer probably has more specific information. Basically, you've already approved this. This is the land that you're going to give to the state to develop the intersection at G and 131. This is just a formality. They're requesting a formal resolution. Not every sale requires that, so basically you're putting a stamp of approval on something you've already done.
Did you want to add anything?
I was only going to add that on April 9th was when we approved the sale of that property. based on the cost that we have into it, and this is a great way we were able to partner with the state, and it's an exciting project to come to the community.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board for either Attorney Porter or Public Works Director Anna Horner? Is there any public comment on this item? All right, moving right along, is there any deliberation or comments from the board? Then I would entertain a motion. I'll make the motion to approve the sale of township property as presented.
Support.
Ooh, just got you on that one. You guys should have duked it out for the first motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Resolution.
Oh, I'm so, dang it. Now I know how it happens. This is a roll call. Let me just write that down. Trustee Cole.
Yes.
Trustee Sikora.
Yes.
Trustee Chapman.
Yes.
Trustee Ford is absent. Supervisor Sherry Bell is absent. I vote yes. Treasurer Bushka.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted by roll call 5-0 with Bell and Ford absent. Thank you. Now, we will address item C from the consent agenda, the KL Avenue sanitary sewer lateral installation. And I would open it up for Trustee Cole to ask any questions she may have.
Yeah, I wanted to just ask a few clarifying questions on the proposals, particularly when I looked at the difference in them. I've had experience with Kalamazoo excavation, extremely good experience with them, and I was surprised to see how much higher theirs was. So my question is, in their proposal for Kalamazoo excavation, obviously being quite a bit higher, they put in there, remove trees to gain access to tap location, da-da-da-da. I didn't see that in the Alamo Dirt Works one, so I guess, are they assuming do trees need to be removed? And if so, are we gonna have a charge, I guess, on top of what they've quoted us? Do you know what I mean? Because why did Kalamazoo excavation quote that as being necessary to get to it? And
That's a good
Alamo
question.
Dirt Works didn't. And then there's a clause in and again, I'm not saying anything bad about Alamo Dirt Works.
I just put in the minutes that you requested more information regarding the quotes provided.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's a little vague as far as assuming, there was something in there about, this bid is assuming that it's, oh gosh, where's the terminology? Assuming the sewer main is located prior to excavation and within 7 feet from the surface. So again, do we know that that's the case?
Hold on just a second. Tom, if you want to talk to her outside, certainly you're welcome to do that. We end up getting a lot of echo. I apologize.
Would trees be considered personal property, which later down says that we're responsible to remove?
So we had the same kind of shock when we saw the two different numbers, and I know Zach followed up with both contractors. It was a little bit their means and methods and the type of equipment they were going to be using. I believe one was going to have a little bit bigger of equipment, and so their impact would be a little bit bigger, and they included all their costs. They're just lump sum bids, so it's for the cost to complete adding the sewer lead to the sewer main. So when you do a lump sum contract like this, the company is responsible for understanding and knowing all their impacts so that they can bid it, because they only get paid this one price to have the work completed. So there wouldn't be any extras. This is, again, to get the entire project completed. So if they are saying that trees aren't going to be impacted when they do the work because of the size of equipment, they might be using a smaller excavator, that's their means and methods, and then that's reflected in the price. We are not anticipating a significant amount of trees coming down. This is the southeast corner of KL and 9th, if you're familiar with that. it's Midwest Collision. There's a sewer lead that runs along their eastern property line, just kind of through a green space. So we pulled their septic records and provided those to both contractors so that they could see kind of where they needed to align the sewer lead. We are only we are only installing the lead within our sewer easement, so they don't need to go very far into the property line. So it was just the way the two contractors bid the project and how they thought it would take to complete the work. So it can also be, and I don't know for these two specifically, but my experience is that it could also depend on somebody's schedule, whether they bid something higher or not, and what they, have availability for crews, if they're gonna have to be working overtime or something like that. So it could just be a scheduling thing if they already have a lot of work on the books. Sometimes that's why we see cost increase as well.
Yeah, it would be nice if Zach were here to answer some of the questions as far as the follow-up calls, but, okay, thank you.
But thank you, because we've had this discussion about different types of contracts that come before us. And some are contracts that might come back because they've exceeded contingency, and some are just one amount, doesn't matter what you encounter, this is all the money you're getting from us. And this is one of those contracts. So, that's one of the ones, well, if you missed quoting on it, then,
As long as,
And if
as
we-
long as, like Claire said, the
Additional detail.
the customer agrees to remove or otherwise protect any personal belongings inside or near, I don't know if that would, I guess we'll trust that they're,
If we had provided them pay items, like we had said, okay, there's gonna be 3 trees for removal and this amount of cubic yards for excavation, then you can get a little bit more granular, and then if they don't remove any trees, you don't have to pay that many trees. So it's just, like Dusty was mentioning, the different types of contracts and different types of bids put the risk in different parties, courts. And this, for this size of a project, it was just, we went with a lump sum bid to complete the work. They're both very good contractors. They've done a lot of the connections we've seen from the residents in the group of 300, so.
okay. And you did say that Zach did call both of them back and do some clarification follow-up, so.
And I believe
I'm
he went
comfortable
after
with that.
3 quotes, and we didn't even, again, a lot of people are busy this time of year, it's not,
Yeah,
so I don't think he got any more than these 2.
okay. I'm comfortable with passing it, especially knowing that Zach did the follow-up work.
thank you. Is there anyone else who has a question regarding this item? Because we removed it from the consent agenda, I will open it up for public comment.
Hello, my name is Mason Milks. I'm from State Representative Matt Hall's office. Just here going around to each individual township.
This is about the Cal Ave sanitary sewer.
That's the one after this, right?
Yeah.
Then I will go sit down.
Give me about 2 more seconds. Honestly, I was shocked. I was like, I did not know he was going to want to talk about this. I knew where you were from, so. All right, I would entertain anyone else for public comment? We'll close that out, and I would entertain a motion. I'll make the motion to accept, sorry. I'll make the motion to approve the Cal Avenue sanitary sewer lateral installation bid for Alamo. I wish I had not moved that paper. Dirtworks? Okay, good, there it is. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with 2 absent. And now we have reached the long-awaited public comment. I feel like we're going to have a couple people here. So if you have public comment on any item in the whole world, please join us at the podium.
And you have to
Okay.
start all over again.
Okay, I'm Mason Milks. I'm from State Representative Matt Hall's office. I don't have anything to say about the sewer lateral installation. Just going around to all of the little municipalities in our district, just to hear what's going on. Sounds like you guys have a lot of opinions on the matters today, so that's nice to see that's going well. I'm also a resident of Oshtemo at 8812 Pine Acres Drive. It's a Kalamazoo address. I was just wondering on the zoning ordinance, have you guys considered diesel exhaust fluid, which is designed to minimize nitrous oxide? I was just wondering, I don't know, you didn't mention it, I don't know if you're allowed to talk to me, but I was just asking.
We're not.
Yeah, okay, then I won't expect any answer. But I was just wondering if you've considered it, and you're nodding okay.
No, but thank you for your comments, because we can incorporate those into the
Yeah, that
work
would
that
be-
will be done.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? I really thought that that woman who just walked out was going to do public comment.
But we can't go.
Should I just be really loud? Last call for public comment.
Bingo.
Hey, look, you leave me to chair a meeting, I'm going to chair it the farmer way.
Last call.
Yeah, I really do want her to provide it, because she waited through the whole meeting for it. Thank you. And she might be getting her comment satisfied better than we can, because we can't talk to you, so. Do we have any further public comment? Oh, okay. All right, then we're going to close that item out. Oh, here we go, thank you. Thank you.
Kudos, thank you, thank you all for approving that minor ordinance tweak for me to have a shed or a garage. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, we're going to close out public comment, and we will move on to board member comments. I'll start with trustee Cole.
I'd just like to say, amazing turnout at the Fire Station 1 the other night with the pancake dinner. That was so cool to see the, I've never seen anything like that, the turning, like pancake grill. I don't know what it was. It was like it was really cool.
That's the Ted and Marie's Colonial Kitchen Special. They used to use that to provide a pancake breakfast at Oshtemo Fun Day, which we haven't done for a number of years. And so Themi Caracas donated that to the fire station.
Nice. Well, I would like to propose that we do more things at the fire station because clearly fire trucks, they bring in crowds, especially with kids. But yeah, that was cool to see. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Trustee Chapman?
I have nothing additional at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Sikora?
Thank you. I thought it was the comprehensive plan update that brought everybody in, not the fire trucks. But anyway.
It was the pancakes and the fire trucks.
Yeah, so a couple of comments from Friends of the Parks. We have lots of exciting things going on. We had our third and final summer concert on Sunday, August 4th at Flesher Field with the Hired Hands Band. And I wanted to thank all our volunteers. I wanted to thank Supervisor Bell for emceeing the event, Parks Director Street, and Maintenance Director Fountain for having everything looking great and running smoothly, and especially our volunteers who do everything from setup, parking, selling raffle tickets, takedown, and everything else in between. We really appreciate our volunteers and everyone who was involved with these three concerts. But we're not sitting back. Our next event is Family Fun at Drake Farmstead on Saturday, September the 21st from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. We'll have live children's music from Ben Jammin from 1 to 2. The Fresh Food Fairy will bring their bike blender so you can ride the bike and make a fresh Michigan fruit smoothie from 2 to 3. There'll be some other family activities like scavenger hunt, pumpkin crafts, and nature trails. And everyone can enjoy a free self-guided tour through the historic Drake House during the Oshtemo Historical Society's fall open house that they're having. And please visit Oshtemo Friends of the Parks on Facebook for more information about that. And if that isn't enough, we're also organizing a sponsor and volunteer recognition luncheon to be held in October at the Drake Farmstead. So we're keeping busy. Election-wise, since I couldn't work at a precinct in Oshtemo, I was a poll worker at Cooper Township Precinct Number 1. And while the basic process is the same everywhere, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful opportunity to work in a different jurisdiction and see how they do things. And it's comforting to know that and to see that poll workers are friendly people and work hard no matter where they are located. And I also attended the breakfast for dinner at the Oshtemo Fire Department event last week. It was a very good event, good turnout. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to any tips and tricks you want to share with me from Cooper. Thank you.
Don't do it in the middle of when you're having your building
Oh,
under construction.
yeah.
That's number one.
But she did get a really big new election room, so. Treasurer Bushka.
I have no additional comments, thank you.
Thank you. We did have a successful election last week, and our portion of the canvass has been completed by the Board of County Canvassers. They actually visited us. When you have a high-speed, so a regular tabulator prints out a tape at the end of the night that has all of the write-in candidates on it. It takes a screenshot, and it's much easier to go through and confirm, but the high-speed tabulators don't do that, and so they actually have to be done by hand, and so for the canvassers to be able to move through that process, they had to come out here, and so I was able to observe them. They went through and they found all the write-ins and confirmed, and at the same time completed the rest of our canvass. So we're done, and everything is balanced and recountable, but I'll provide the rest of the update after the Board of County Canvassers has adjourned, and that has not happened yet, and so I'll provide some numbers. But I will say that our turnout was over 10% less than what it was in August of 2020, and that's just sort of interesting. I'm not, different time period, different people on the ballot, a lot going on. But it was just interesting. I do not expect to have a low turnout for November in any way, shape, or form. The other thing I would like to share with you is that at our, so I sit on the Metro Transit boards. I sit on both of them. I sit on the CCTA and the KCTA. The CCTA is the Central County Transit Authority, and it is the taxing authority that manages our bus line system. And then I also sit on the KCTA, which is the Kalamazoo County Transit Authority. That is an appointment through Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners, and that is the authority that governs our paratransit service, also known as Metro Connect. And at our meeting on Monday, I was appointed by the board as the vice chair of the KCTA. So I asked them if I could dial back some of my responsibilities, and this is how they repay me. But so we are in an interim period. Our current, well, he's not anymore. Our former chair, Greg Rosine, who has served for probably over 7 years now as chair, retired, and it was after we went through this process of reshaping our governance of how we operate. He saw us through that process and has decided to resign as chair, but he still sits on the board. And so in the meantime, we will have an interim chair and interim vice chair, and that's me. And that'll be for about 7 months when we go through the process in March of reallocating committee chairs and board governance structure and all that. So it's just a temporary piece. But I wanted to share that with the board. And in addition to that, the CCTA, the one with the bus line service, that is a very specific jurisdiction. It's a taxing authority that only affects those in the precincts that have been, what's the word I want? Added by jurisdictions. Opted in, thank you, opted in, and then it's voted on by the people whether or not they approve a millage. That is a very specific jurisdiction for bus line service. The KCTA, with this paratransit service, the Metro Connect, the vans that you see driving around, that is county-wide. So that affects every single property in this county. And with that, there are very specific guidelines. I think we have 11 board members, and they're from specific areas, but we have 2 at-large, no, that's on the CCTA. 2 at-large members anyway that would be from outside that district that we need to fill, and they've been very difficult to fill. We've had those vacancies for a couple years now. And so if anyone is interested in applying in the at-large capacity, anyone in the whole township, not just people I texted and asked if they wanted to, I encourage them to apply with Kalamazoo County and go through that process and request an appointment. We would really appreciate it. It's a very important service that we have. It is the way that people who are elderly or have any sort of accessibility need, it's how they move around the county. So it's really important stuff. And with that, we have exhausted our agenda and we are adjourned at 6:46. Thank you.